Hello my mellow fellows, or should I say my fellow KND operatives. It's Numbuh Double T here reporting in for debriefing. I had so many beloved childhood shows growing up, but there was one that was my absolute favorite on Cartoon Network. As you probably could guess, it was the Codename Kids Next Door, a show about children who constantly fight against adult tyranny and teen oppression. A show where kids sought to liberate other kids from the horrors of vegetables, root beer prohibition, and dorky clothes. I used to be a KND operative myself, but sadly, I can't tell you guys about my time as an operative. It's confidential information, so you guys understand, right? Good, I knew you guys were cool. As I said, it was my favorite show on Cartoon Network. Not only was I in awe of the 2x4 technology and the creativity of the show, but I also loved the characters. I loved the villains, and I also loved the strange names that some operatives came up for themselves. For example, Number One Love, iconic, honestly. I loved the lore and how deep some of these relationships actually went in the show. It was truly an amazing experience to watch. Recently, I was watching KND with my little sisters and decided that I wanted to make a video on every member of Sector V. And to do this properly, I went back and binged the entire series before they took it off of HBO Max, which was a sad day in my life, including both specials and the movie. I took extensive color-coded notes, and now I'm finally ready to unleash my hyperfixation on the world. Yes, I could have just researched instead of watching the whole series, but I feel like this is a more fun and accurate way of doing these videos. I also pick up on a lot more subtle things if I watch it myself. The devil's in the details after all. So you may be thinking, who would I be covering in this little mini series of mine? Well, obviously I'm covering numbers 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, and maybe some others if I feel like it. These videos aren't just facts about these characters. Like, I'm not here to tell you that Abigail Lincoln was named after Abraham Lincoln because he was on a $5 bill and she's number 5. Like, obviously that's cool information to know, but we're here more so to dissect these characters as a person individually and their roles in the show. I'll also be covering anybody who's relevant to these characters. For example, today we are obviously covering number 5, aka Abigail Lincoln. So I'm going to talk about her family, especially her sister Cree. I'll also be covering her individual relationships with every member of Sector V, with special emphasis on number 2 and number 1. I'll also mention some more of her unconventional relationships with villains like Heini and Stickybeard. So in other words, this video is going to be a long one. Just judging off my notes, I expect number 1's and number 5's videos to be the longest out of all the teams. And it's because these two have so much lore and history in their characters that, yeah, they're going to be long. So with that junk out of the way and covered, just sit back, kick your feet up, and relax as we talk about the coolest candy hunter in Sector V, number 5, also known as Abby. There isn't a more perfect character that embodies cool, calm, and collected. Her name is Abigail Lincoln, but her friends and her family call her Abby. Her code name is number 5. For the first couple of seasons, they usually just stick to calling her number 5, but as the series goes on, her team starts calling her Abby more often, especially number 1 and number 2. Watching the show, she is a natural secret agent. She's smart, she's reliable, and she's a natural leader. Number 5 stands out as one of the most capable members on the team, being on par with number 1 in terms of her skills and her knowledge. However, at the very same time, she is humble, she is chill, and she tends to spend her time relaxing by listening to music or reading a magazine. She works hard and she plays harder. She believes in both being a good agent and making time to enjoy herself. A work-life balance that number 1 tends to lack. Number 5 is very clearly leader material, so why is she only a second in command? Well, to answer that, we have to go way back to the beginning to fully understand how her story plays out in the show and how she ended up where she is. So let's start with her family. Abby is the youngest sibling of 3 kids. Her dad is Dr. Lincoln, a veterinarian who used to be a clown named Chonko. He's a goofy dad who tends to embarrass his kids by oversharing and being overly friendly with her friends. Abby has a good relationship with her father. He bakes cookies for her, he takes her out and spends time with her, and he lets her friends come over to visit quite a bit. He seems to be the most familiar with number 1 and number 2, so I assume they're the main ones who come and visit her. Her mother, on the other hand, is a mystery. She does appear on the show, but very rarely. She has a French accent, and that's all we really know about her. So her mom is a French native who moved to America to raise her family. Number 5's parents are the only faces we don't see out of the Sector V parents. Yet ironically, I feel like we see her dad the most out of the Sector V parents. I like him because he finds the kids funny and he treats all of the kids like his own kids. Seeing him constantly baking cookies and muffins for the kids, even with guns pointing at him, is surprisingly wholesome. Who he's referencing off of is not wholesome at all, but his character as a standalone character is. ages. Abby has one older, unnamed brother who's already married with kids, so that makes Abby an auntie at a very young age. It explains why she's so good with babies. After all, she was the only one who knew how to take care of the kids Number 1 kidnapped from the hospital. She was also the only one who knew where babies come from and traumatized her entire team with that information. So when it comes to real life knowledge and real life experience, Number 5 is the most knowledgeable person on her team. We don't know anything else about her brother or his family, but we do know that Abby is probably so much more mature because she is an auntie at her age. Last but not least, we all know and love her evil sister Cree, a direct underling of father. Abby's big sister Cree is her older sister, greatest enemy, and former mentor all in one. The relationship between them is complicated and runs very deep emotionally. Out of the group, I would say Number 5 has the most complicated relationships in the show, and her relationships definitely have the most nuance. I feel like Number 5's mysterious past and emotional scars add so much to her coolness factor. Though I am getting a little bit ahead of myself, let's roll back and let's get into her introduction to the KND organization. We do not know her brother's involvement with the KND, but we do know that Cree was a big part of the kids next door. Cree used to be the leader of Sector V and was known as Number 11. She personally trained and mentored Number 5 into becoming a KND operative. Number 5 became an operative at a young age and worked in Sector V with Cree, 2 twins, and Maurice. Cree was regarded as one of the best KND agents at the time and was the leader of Sector V. Cree specialized in both fighting and 2x4 technology. Abby closely followed after her cool older sister's footsteps. She wanted to be just like Cree at the time, so Number 5 also specialized in martial arts and KND tech, just like her sister. Abby and Cree were really close sisters at the time. Cree was proud of Number 5 for being such a good agent at her age and was proud of her ability to handle tough missions. As a symbol of pride, Cree handed down her famous red hat to Number 5, something we see Number 5 cherish throughout the entire series. That hat is special to Number 5 because it came from the version of her sister that she looked up to, and because she keeps it even all the way to adulthood, I think it shows how much she loves her sister even after things go sour between them. After all, she was able to recognize that the delightful children swapped out her hat. When Cree turned 13, she was scheduled to be decommissioned. However, she ended up betraying the KND and escaping before that can happen. She took all the KND secrets she knew to the evil teens, and from then on started working with the adults. They tried to capture and decommission her for years afterwards, but those poor kids just ended up getting wedgied. There's a whole other discussion that can be had around decommissioning and whether it does more harm than good, especially since decommissioning has caused a lot of people to stray because they don't want to lose their childhood memories. But that's a whole nother discussion around the ethics of decommissioning. This causes an obvious rift between the two. Number 5 is completely loyal to the KND and kid liberation. Cree grew to hate kids and would actively take any chance to wipe them out of existence. Their relationship became strained, and they started fighting both in the battlefield and at home. Their dad was completely oblivious to their feud, which was honestly super hilarious. It's unclear why Cree had this sudden change of heart. There had to be some trigger for this, especially with how passionate Cree is about her hate for kids. I don't know if it's about feeling betrayed during decommissioning, or maybe she wants to grow up, but either way there had to be something. It was never really touched on in the show. Abby resented that Cree grew up to be everything that they once hated. Cree, on the other hand, hates that Abby won't just grow up with her. We learn later in the series that Cree is more than willing to accept Abby again as her sister, as long as Abby decides to grow up and be an evil teen with her, which is not going to happen. It's clear that they both miss each other very much. There is a lot of love between them. However, there's also a lot of hurt and betrayal between them as well. It's a tough situation for both of them, mostly Number 5. Seeing someone you admire and love become a literal supervillain is heartbreaking. That's why Number 5 was so hell-bent on keeping Maurice from diverting to the evil teens. I don't think Number 5 would be able to handle another big betrayal like that. For context, Maurice is a past member of Sector V. He also was one of the best KND agents of his time. Man, Sector V really just be having the best agents, don't they? However, Maurice aged out of the kids next door and eventually became a teen. Number 5 was devastated when she thought he was decommissioned. Maurice was both a longtime friend of Abby's and one of her idols. Seeing him grow up was a tough day for her. And when Cree was on a mission to recruit him to the teens, Number 5 literally went to war with all the teens to prevent that from happening. By herself, mind you. Thankfully, Maurice did not betray her or the KND. That's when Abby found out about the existence of teen Kids Next Door operatives who would go undercover for the Kids Next Door. Maurice was selected to be an undercover teen operative. We actually found out in the finale that Chad was also selected for this as well. Seeing Maurice go the opposite direction of Cree gave Abby hope that not all heroes will lose themselves like Cree did. Cree is one of the most prominent villains in the show. This girl literally tried to launch the entire moon base into the sun with a bunch of children inside. This girl is deranged. She is easily number 5's biggest enemy, which is sad considering how alike they are. Number 5 takes after a lot from her big sister. They speak alike, they have similar mannerisms, they have similar personalities, and they're both very cool. The main difference between them is that Cree lacks loyalty and morals. Number 5 has always been loyal to the KND and her belief. Abby has a strong moral compass. Cree, on the other hand, just does whatever is best for Cree. She puts no one above herself, not even her own family. One of number 5's biggest fears is growing up and losing her childhood and the KND. Just like number 1, the KND is so ingrained in her identity that losing it means losing a part of what makes her, well, her. Maurice and the existence of the teen KND operatives were the one thing that restored hope for Abby. Hope that she does not have to grow up and give up what's important to her. A hope that she doesn't have to become like her sister. Cree has masterminded a lot of plots against the Kids Next Door, even to her detriment sometimes. She does this in a way to prove herself to Father. Throughout the series, we see her report directly to Father and take orders straight from him, so he does hold her in high regard. She's one of the main threats to the Kids Next Door and has come so close to destroying them multiple times. Cree is the one who made and spread the chickenpox virus to the kids, even her own sister. Number 5 has no other choice but to fight her sister. Number 5 cannot hold back on Cree because Cree will absolutely not hold back on her. It's a sad situation and it's one that may never be solved between them. However, even though things are bad between them, they still do some normal sister things. They both scold their dad for embarrassing them, and Cree gets annoyed by number 5 stealing her CDs, which is a very sisterly thing to do. It's not just her though. All of the kids from Sector V steal from Cree's room, even though number 5 tells them not to. And that's the same episode number 4 was licking Cree's deodorant like ice cream for the entire episode. Disgusting. Anyway, Cree and Abby still have their sister moments, but they don't last long. Even though number 5's arch nemesis is Cree, she has 2 other villains that she has regular episodes with, and that would be Stickybeard and Heini, which is what we're going to talk about next. In this show, every member of Sector V gets equal screen time on the show. You would think number 1 would get all the attention, but no, it's pretty equal. Sometimes they would go on solo missions, each with certain themes to them. For example, number 2's solo missions tend to revolve around film noir type of mysteries, or smuggling things for the Kids Next Door, or obviously has something to do with him being a pilot. Number 5 center episodes tend to revolve around her daring adventures as the legendary candy hunter. Number 5 is one of the best candy hunters there are. Number 5 often travels around the world to hunt for the rarest candy and ice cream flavors. She is an expert in ice cream and candy lore, artifacts, and ancient rituals. We all remember the infamous 4th flavor episode. Abby literally risked her life in a quest to taste the legendary 4th flavor of ice cream. And she did. She was one of the 2 kids who ever got to taste it. The other person is number 0, number 1's father. To this day, I still wonder what it tastes like. Apparently, the 4th flavor is recognizable to Abby, so it had to be something we all know. Number 5 usually goes on her candy hunt in between KND missions. Number 1 gets annoyed with her adventures sometimes because he would prefer for her to be in the treehouse to help him out with his crazy team. But he lets it slide because she does share her candy stash with all of them. And also she's the one who goes on nacho runs, so you gotta respect the girl. Anyway, because of her candy hunts, she acquired 2 other candy rivals. Not only does she have to worry about her sister Cree, but she also has to worry about Stickybeard and Heini. One way more sinister than the other. Let's start on a sweet note with Stickybeard. Stickybeard is a villain who obviously loves candy. He sails on his pirate ship and steals candy from kids. For the most part, I would consider him on the chill end of villains. He has his moments where he's a real threat, but for the most part, he minds his business when it's not candy related. The main reason he usually comes around is to take number 5's candy or to steal Halloween candy from kids. The thing about Stickybeard is that he's an enemy of the Kids Next Door for sure. However, he has a natural appreciation for any kid who loves candy as much as he does. Abby is a candy connoisseur. Okay, she's a connoisseur, and he respects her for that. The fact that she can out sugar drink him, a captain of candy loving pirates, is beyond impressive. He even has offered her a spot on his crew as first mate multiple times on the show. Obviously, she says no because she is a KND operative through and through. Stickybeard doesn't like that she says no, but that won't stop him from asking again. They are enemies, but there's a mutual respect between them that she doesn't have for a lot of other villains. He came to their rescue when they nearly drowned in asparagus, so he also helped her with the black licorice pirates. Granted, he lost a bet to her, so he had to do it, but then again, he's a villain. Who says he has to honor his word? The fact that he did honor his word, I do think is where I could give him some respect for. The fact that he has done those things tells us that he has his own set of morals that he lives by. Stickybeard's not above helping his enemies from time to time. Don't get me wrong, he's still evil, but he's at least reasonable, unlike villains like Father or Mr. Boss. Besides, his ship name is the Sweet Revenge, which is so badass I can't even hate him for that. I kind of love it, it's iconic. I always love Stickybeard, he's so fun, and he's just a great villain. A great, fun, reasonable villain. Except for when he's eating hairy ass candy from his beard, that's just gross. But let's move on to a more sinister rival, Heini. Heini is an important part of Abby's past. Her troubled past with Heini affects number 5 throughout the majority of the series. Abby's history with Heini predates the series, all the way back before she was part of her current team, back where Cree was still her leader. Introducing Heinrich/Henrietta, Abby's ex-candy hunting partner and ex-best friend. Abby and Heini worked together as partners until one fateful day in Guatemala, which ended up ruining their friendship for years. Throughout the show, what happened in Guatemala was treated as a mystery. They were both very vague about what happened, but you could tell it was a sore subject between them. Heini had a lot of animosity for Abby and blamed her for what happened to them all those years ago. Eventually, we find out what happened between them in the last season, and let me tell you, the story was worth the build up throughout the series. When they finally revealed it, all the past episodes fell into place and recontextualized their whole relationship. But I'm just gonna give it to you straight because I ain't got time for all that. Their story starts when they were 7 years old. Again, back when number 5 was with her original team with Cree and Maurice. Heini was her best friend and her candy hunting partner. They had a good relationship until one fateful trip to Guatemala. I guess in this universe, Guatemala is like a group of friends going to Miami. Nobody is coming back as friends. They were on a quest for the most delicious candy in the world, the sacred golden caramels. They both go to Guatemala together and arrive at the temple. They do the little ritual together, and here's where things go wrong. So what the ritual does, it take the user's most prized quality from their body and turn it into candy. For example, for number 5, she valued her coolness the most, which apparently was delicious according to Heini. Number 4 values his toughness, which has a simple yet strong flavor. Number 3 values her positive attitude, which is even too sweet for Heini. Number 2 values his intelligence, which tastes sharp yet complex. Number 1 values his leadership skills, which taste both bold and smooth. And Heini values their beauty and femininity. When you eat these caramels, it tastes like the best candy to ever exist. The traits that it takes from does influence the flavor, like I said. So no two candies will taste alike. However, the drawback is severe if you eat all of your candy without sharing. Heini gobbled down their candy selfishly and refused to share even after number 5 warned them of the consequences. This causes Heini to lose her beauty and accidentally turn herself into a boy. An unattractive boy in her eyes. Not only did she lose her femininity, but she also lost her attractiveness, two things that she loved dearly. When number 5 saw that Heini was losing control of her greed, she left Heini behind and escaped. Heini eventually ended up getting caught doing the ritual and was grounded for a month. From Heine's point of view, not only did she lose the part of herself she loved the most that day, but she also felt betrayed by Abby, her best friend, who left her to take the fall. So Heini became Heinrich and started a years-long feud with number 5, swearing that one day they get revenge. A short time after this, Heini became a cabin boy for Stickybeard for a little while. During their time with Stickybeard, Heini ended up stealing a red candy seed from Black John licorice. Heini escaped at first, but this does come back to bite them years later. Before that can happen though, we see Heini multiple times in the series. When Abby went candy hunting to give number 1 a special candy for his birthday, she ran to Heini, who was also hunting for the Blurple Berry Supreme. Heini got to the candy first, but number 5 warned them about the curse protecting the candy. Those who don't share the Blurple Berry will have their candy taste like asparagus. However, Heini was greedy and didn't listen, which is a theme with them. Heini refused to share and ended up not being able to taste the candy. Heini then blamed number 5 and tried to get revenge, but that obviously didn't go well. Number 5 got the candy back and again left Heini to deal with the consequences. Number 5 was able to give the candy to number 1 for his birthday, but hilariously, he does not like Blurpleberry. Turns out he prefers cherry flavored. Let's just say Abby was not happy about this. This episode was technically our first introduction to Heini in the episode Operation Jules, but since I gave you guys the context of their past first, you can see why this makes Heini even more upset with number 5. This situation played out almost exactly like Guatemala, showing that Heini learned nothing from their curse. They were still greedy, refused to share, and blamed number 5 for everything, completely ignoring any accountability that Heini had in it. In fact, Heini started to double down on the insanity. The next time we seen Heinrich was in episode Operation Rabbit. Heini stole a first grade classroom's bunny and tried to dip this live bunny into a volcano of chocolate. Why? Why, you may ask? Why would someone possibly do that? Well, it was because Heini wanted to eat a living chocolate bunny. Screw buying an actual chocolate bunny. No, let's actually make chocolate bunnies. Which is on a whole new level of crazy. Murdering rabbits for fun. Who wants to make chocolate bunnies from real bunnies? Like, come on now. Number 5 stops Heini obviously because the kindergartner class asks her for help personally, along with number 2 obviously. This episode sadly ends up with Heini falling into the chocolate volcano. Abby was upset by this, thinking her friend had died. However, Heini emerged from the chocolate as a chocolate covered monster. Everything Heini touched turned into chocolate, including people. Heini was happy at first because they could eat as much chocolate as they wanted. However, once Heini realized that they could only eat chocolate and not anything else, they were miserable. So of course, Heini blamed and went after number 5 instead of taking any responsibility. Once Abby seen what Heini was turned into, Abby was sympathetic to Heini and suggested that they turn themselves into the KND and maybe their scientists can find a way to reverse the chocolate curse. Heini was not trying to hear it though, and was hell-bent on destroying Abby. However, number 5 was able to take them down because she's just that cool, with the power of the sun. Heini got sent to the KND where they were cured but immediately sent to the Arctic prison. Number 5 was nice enough to bring Heini a cheeseburger in jail, and Heini was actually really happy about the cheeseburger. Well, until they saw there were pickles in it and once again swore revenge on Abby. There's really a theme with Heini here, isn't there? The next time we see Heini is in the episode Operation Licorice. Remember how I said that Heini stole and ate a red licorice seed from Black John Licorice? Well, in order for Black John to break the curse on him, he needed that seed. So he ended up kidnapping Heini from the Arctic prison and planned to do a ritual that would lift his curse even if the seed was in Heini's body. And when I mean the seed was in his body, I mean the seed was growing out of Heini's body, which would end up taking out Heini, if you know what I mean. Honestly, that kind of gave me nightmares, seeing that stuff coming out of his nose. Number 5, being the good person she is, sets out to rescue Heini. She recruits Stickybeard for help, and together they beat Black John Licorice. Abby saved Heini and seemed happy that her friend was okay, though right after, Heini was sent right back to jail. Which is fair enough, Heini did try to deep fry a bunny in chocolate. The last appearance of Heini was in the final season where the Guatemala situation was finally explained. Somehow, Heini ended up escaping prison and is back on their revenge scheme against Abby, even though in the last episode, Abby saved them. This is when Heini tricked Abby into doing a ritual that took her coolness. The ritual actually spread to other KND treehouses and affected a lot of other kids in the process. Heini wanted to take revenge on Abby by eating what was most important to her, her coolness. Heini wanted Abby to suffer the same way that they did, by losing something that Abby valued. Before Heini could eat the last candy, number 5 revealed a secret. All those years ago, when Heini ate all of her own caramels, Abby knew that she couldn't control herself, so Abby took the last piece of Heini's candy for safety, hoping that one day she could break the curse that turned Heini into a boy in the first place. All Heini needed to do was share her candy and the curse would be broken. She could have both her girlhood and her beauty back only if she shared. Abby kept it all these years because Heini would have eaten it immediately and the curse would have been permanent. This was Heini's last chance to break the curse. Either she eats her last candy right here and right now, or she shares to get her beauty back. At first, Heini was going to let the Cree win and eat the last bit of their candy. However, number 5 reminded Heini of their time as best friends, and told Heini how much she cares for them. Which is true. If Abby didn't care about Heini, she could have abandoned Heini a long time ago. Instead, she kept her candy for years and held out hope that someday she'll come to her senses. Heini finally decided to share her candy, and just like that, the curse was broken. Heinrich turned into Henrietta, and the curse of greed was finally lifted. along with anybody else who was affected by this curse. Heini and Abby's friendship had finally come full circle to them being friends again. Number 5 even introduces Heini to her team as her actual self before Heini leaves to right all the wrongs she committed. She's basically going on an apology tour right now. She's gone and their friendship is now restored. Heini and Abby have a very unique story in the show. For the longest time, there was this mystery about what happened between them. Even though Heini was a villain, there always felt like there was more to the story. At first, it looked like a story of betrayal. We were led to believe that number 5 has wronged Heini in some way. However, we as the audience get to know Abby as a person. Betrayal is just not in her character. Abby has never been the type of person to hurt people on purpose, especially her friends. Abby is loyal and genuine, and she's always willing to give people second chances or the benefit of the doubt. So Abby leaving Heini to save her own skin just doesn't make sense. There had to be more to it, even more than Heini knew. Then finally, as the show goes on, the mystery unravels. We see that number 5 actually did leave Heini, but she did it for her own good. She took Heini's last candy because if Heini would have eaten it, then she would have been cursed forever. At the same time, she couldn't tell Heini she had it, or again, she probably would have eaten it out of greed. So number 5 just let Heini hate her until she thought that Heini would be ready to turn a new leaf. Everything Abby did, ever since she was 7, was to protect Heini from herself. Even though Heini genuinely hated Abby, number 5 never gave up on Heini. Abby has never stopped seeing Heini as a friend in need of being put back on the right path. Greed and selfishness got the best of Heini for years. Yet Abby knew that one day she could help her friend be herself again. Abby had faith in Heini and saw goodness that even Heini thought was lost forever. Abby's loyalty to her friends is something to be admired. Even if you give up on yourself, number 5 won't give up on you. Number 5 is the type that will see you through to the end, and that's something about her that never changes throughout the entire series, no matter who it is. Now that we've gone through Abby's past, let's talk about her current life in Sector V. First, we'll talk about her personality and how she fits in the team, and then we'll talk about her individual relationships with her team members. I thought this would be the easy part, but there's actually quite a bit to get through. I didn't pay attention to all the subtleties in this show as a kid, but watching as an adult is a completely different experience. There's so much lore and subtlety that just sits in the background of the show. Don't worry though, that's what I'm here for. I'll guide you through all that. So let's get to know number 5 more in her current life as the second in command in Sector V. Abigail Lincoln is known as number 5. She is the second in command after number 1. When number 1 is absent, number 5 is automatically put in charge to lead instead. As long as it's temporary, she's fine when leading. And she's great at it. She's a natural born leader, as we saw multiple occasions in the show. After all, she single-handedly coordinated Snow Day on her own. She's the perfect second in command. Not only does she have a natural charisma and can lead a team, but she's also a natural team player and can be relied on to follow orders. Abigail can both lead and follow, which makes her position on a team flexible. Regardless, she does what needs to be done. Abby is intelligent, laid back, calm, and responsible. She is an honor roll student and is both book smart and street smart. She's artistic and studious and even plays the piano. Her handwriting is so nice. She writes in cursive, y'all. I can't even write in cursive that well. Her favorite books are the Book of KND and the Manual on 2x4 Technology. So it's safe to say that she's a bit of a nerd, like the coolest nerdy girl you've ever met. Like I said earlier, number 5 is very interested in history and lore, usually around subjects like candy, ice cream, and of course the history of the kids next door. She was the only one who actually believed in the legend of the 4th flavor and vowed to one day taste it, and the other kids just wrote it off as a made-up story. Abby believed though, and we got to see her live her lifelong dream in the show. Only the purest of taste buds were allowed through, and number 5 was the chosen one. Her knowledge and unwavering faith are what truly make her special. As number 1 says, she is the only one on the team with common sense and tends to be the most rational member on the team. You would think that would be number 1 to be the most rational, but he tends to be very paranoid. Number 1 can see a simple thing as snow and think it's a conspiracy set up by the adults to oppress kids. Now, sometimes he's right, aka the dentist, but other times he's just spiraling in paranoia. That's why number 5 is there, to keep the team grounded. Even in the crossover with Billy and Mandy, she was literally the only one in the entire KND who can tell that Mandy was not number 1. Abby was also the one who figured out that number 4 didn't have cooties. Instead, he had an allergic reaction from eating coconuts. Even number 1 thought cooties were real. Abby is not the type to jump to conclusions. Rather, she likes to think things through. She uses both logic and instinct to guide her through most situations. It's usually number 5 who's able to figure out what's going on or when something doesn't feel right. She is hands down the most mature member of the team. She is the godmother to Bradley after all. Besides, I think she's the oldest member of Sector V, so her maturity makes sense. When it comes to fighting, Abby has a mix between hand-to-hand martial arts and weapons. I hear people all the time talk about how number 1 or number 4 have the best fighting skills on their team. However, I feel like people severely undervalue Abby's ability to throw hands. She is acrobatic, she packs a punch, and she's resourceful. She is one of the few people on the team who are able to go against Cree head-to-head. She loves her sister, but that does not mean that she shows her any mercy when they're fighting. Even number 1 couldn't physically beat Cree combat-wise. There has been so many times that Abby was the last one standing on her team, or has to be the one to save her entire team. She doesn't always win, of course, but she will always go out fighting. Abby is absolutely one of the best agents in the KND. Abigail, stand on business Lincoln, was and will always be a survivor. She definitely has final girl energy. That's why her solo episodes are so cool and memorable. Her adventures are always full of action, lore, and heart. Secret rituals, fighting pirates, doing Indiana Jones temple stuff. Her solo missions were always so exciting and fun to watch. So yeah, when people say that she was not one of the best fighters on the team, they need to rewatch it because Abigail can throw hands. Like I said, Abigail's stand on business Lincoln was never the one to be played with. Abby is highly respected in the KND organization. Sector V in general is the best sector in the whole KND organization. However, when it comes to notoriety, number 1 and number 5 are the most recognized in the group. Everyone knows number 5 to be the cool and reliable one. She's often chosen to do special missions outside of her team. Or when number 1 is missing or unavailable, they go straight to number 5 as the default leader. Which makes sense because number 5 used to be the leader of Sector V before a certain incident. There's even a statue of her made out of macaroni in the KND museum. Number 5 has definitely left her mark on the KND as an agent. Even though number 5 takes her mission seriously, she also knows how to relax. Abby loves her me time and is the most chill person on the team. When she's not adding to her legendary candy stash or going on missions, you can find her chilling in a treehouse. She works hard and she chills harder, which is something I can respect. She has a laid-back attitude and tends to go with the flow with whatever the team wants to do. Abby is also very kind-hearted and is also very open-minded to all types of people. If you're a kid in need, you can count on Abby to help you out of a jam. She is someone you can trust to have your best interests at heart. She is a very forgiving person and willing to give people a chance to do the right thing. If not, then she'll take you down. Abby's room in the house is very stylish. I love the fort style bed she sleeps in. She likes to hang out the most in this cool lounge area in the treehouse. The big couch, speakers, art pieces, and vinyl records are reflective of her usual style. She's usually there listening to music by herself or just chilling and reading a magazine. It wouldn't surprise me if this was her personal chill space because she's the main person who hangs out there. Out of everyone on the team, she definitely has the most creative style and the most fashion sense. I also wanted to mention that her teleporter is a phone booth, which is pretty cool. Speaking of fashion, I would describe hers as rather sporty and comfortable. She has a rather tomboyish yet cool style. The baggy shirt, hoop earrings, sneakers, and big hat is very much an example of early 2000s street style. When she's going on special occasions, she often prefers to wear a tux rather than a dress. I loved her style because I was the same way as a kid. I personally related to number 5's sense of style. Her style is truly iconic, and anybody who would cosplay her is easily recognizable. So we established at this point that number 5 is the coolest. After all, not a lot of people can pull off talking in third person without being seen as crazy. However, I think it's time that we talk about her personal relationships on the team. Number 5 is the big sister of the group. She has an air of authority that even number 1 listens to. She gives advice, she has their back, and overall, she looks after everyone's well-being. The team listens to her because most of the time she's right. She's the most rational person of the group, so when she calls something out, it's for a reason. Number 5 takes care of the group while still allowing them to be themselves. She's not controlling, she doesn't make them do anything, but she'll still take care of them, making sure that they don't hurt themselves or get themselves into trouble. And they know not to make her mad because she is very scary when she needs to be. She'll comfort you like a sister and also yell at you like a sister. At the end of the day, she treats her team like family. And with that being said, let's start off with her relationship with number 4, aka Wally. Out of the team, I think that she treats number 4 like a little brother the most. These two definitely have brother-sister energy. Number 4 is a stereotypical tough guy who hates all things girly. However, when it comes to number 5, he really looks up to her and respects her. For the most part, their dynamic is simple. Number 5 teases him for his crush on number 3, or she makes fun of him for the dumb things he says. When number 4 is being stubborn, Abby is usually the one that can get him in line. It's usually up to number 5 to scold him or correct his attitude. He argues back, of course, but usually he backs down or later admits that he was possibly wrong. Number 5 is usually very patient, but number 4 specifically is very stubborn, so she has to be harder on him to get him to listen. And in the later seasons, he starts to listen to her more easily, and he doesn't really put up a fight as much in the later seasons with her. Number 4 is always trying to do what he wants and hardly respects authority. The only people he tends to listen to are number 1 and number 5. And occasionally he'll bend for number 3. It's like in his mind, number 1 and number 5 are the only people that are even allowed to give him orders. And guess what? He listens to them like 80% of the time, which is a very high success rate for a person like him. All the kids in Sector V go to school together and have classes together. Abby and Wally specifically ride the bus together. They do have a very sweet relationship at times. When number 4 needed help with his homework, he went straight to Abby. And when number 5 needed help with those werewolves, he did not hesitate to help her. It's really cute how number 4 is so excited to show number 5 his grades and his homework. I think that Wally secretly likes the praise Abby gives him for making an effort in school. He doesn't really care about school in the first half of the series, but once number 5 starts to get involved in tutoring him, he starts to care about his grades and his homework. There's a real respect that he has for number 5, and he genuinely cares about her. Wally is protective of every member of his team and has a bond with all of them. And the bond he shares with Abby is especially wholesome. Even if she teases him, it's all out of love. Abby keeps him on the right path both morally and in life, and her guidance is something that helped Wally grow into a more well-rounded person during the series, and even afterwards, but like I said, that has to be saved for number 4's video. It's again a really wholesome relationship that I really love, and it's a relationship in the show that is not talked about very much. Moving on to her relationship with number 3, aka Kuki. I say Abby and Cookie's relationship is the simplest relationship that Abby has. They have a very sisterly relationship and tends to get along very well. They are the only girls on the team, so they tend to bond over shared interests. They both like reading fashion magazines together and even make the boys go out and pick it up for them. They spend a lot of time together and they just vibe together, honestly. They're just a good vibe together. Even though they have completely different styles, it does not affect their relationship at all. Abby again acts like a big sister to Kuki. When Kuki is feeling down, Abby is usually the one trying to comfort her or help her feel better. She tries to talk number 3 through things when she's upset and tries to help her see the bright side. Number 1 tries to talk down number 3 all the time, but he usually loses his patience with her halfway through, so it's usually up to number 5 to calm her down. Abby also helps number 3 stay on track because Kuki is normally off into her own world, so she tries to keep her focused on the mission. Even though they don't really have a ton in common, number 5 tries to humor number 3. Number 5 isn't a Rainbow Monkeys fan, but she didn't mind doing Rainbow Monkey stuff with number 3. And she doesn't make number 3 feel bad about it or trash her interests either. She's just there for the ride. When number 3 needs help, number 5 is always down to help her. If Kuki cares about something, number 5 does too. So in short, number 5 is kind of like her friend / therapist. Number 5 empathizes with number 3 in the way most of the team doesn't or can't really understand to. They're both girls, she gets where number 3 is coming from, and she knows how to calm her down. She understands Kuki and takes care of her feelings in a very gentle way. Number 5 is a girl's girl, and I like how she looks after number 3. Now moving on to Abby's 2 closest relationships on the team, number 2 and number 1. This is the whole reason I was motivated to do these videos in the first place. We're going in order here, so let's talk about her adorable relationship with number 2, aka Hoagie. These two have a very strong friendship from the start of the show. It's subtle, but there's also some romantic subtext between them. Number 4 and number 3's relationship was very prominent in the show. So having this relationship be more low-key is a nice contrast between the very focused relationship with number 4 and number 3. From season 1, these two have a very funny dynamic. Number 2 is a jokester, or a class clown as some would say, who likes to make dad jokes every chance he gets. Number 5, on the other hand, is absolutely not a fan of these jokes. She hates his puns, and she makes it very clear how much she hates them. When it's an especially bad pun, she is likely to hit him with her hat. Number 2 doesn't take it personally, honestly, and basically just tells her that she needs to get a sense of humor. In fact, he goes out of his way to try to make her laugh. He sees it as a challenge to make her laugh at one of his jokes. It's almost like he's trying to teach her to be funny. Like when he thought she made a joke on tight ropes, he thought he was rubbing off on her, and he was very happy about that. What's ironic is that number 5 does puns all the time herself. She is very much the queen of saying a snappy pun at her enemies. However, hers are more clever puns, and number 2's are more obvious dad jokes. So yeah, she actually does have a sense of humor. She's just allergic to whatever type Hoagie does. However, despite that, number 2 is proud of his dad jokes and will defend his own humor to the end. I've seen people not understand this friendship dynamic, but I think it's a very realistic friendship. Friends annoy each other all the time. That doesn't mean that they want the other person to change. The banter between them is very fun and lighthearted. He makes a bad joke, she gets annoyed. Number 5 may not like the jokes, but she knows he's just being himself. She tolerates it because he is her friend, and he has been her friend for years. She's used to it by now. And to be honest, if he suddenly stopped the constant jokes, she knows something was wrong with him. To be honest, it's giving very much Claire and Phil Dunphy vibes, or even better, Ron and Kim vibes. There is a sense of true friendship between them, something that's really hard to write. Their personality bounces off each other so well and so naturally that it's hardly noticed in the show. That's why I think it made total sense why they were often paired together in duo-style episodes. Their natural chemistry is really fun to watch. Hoagie is constantly sassing her, and she is constantly threatening his life. But when things get serious, he follows her lead without question and provides her with excellent assistance. And if she needs his help, he has her back. And if he needs her help, she's there for him. So all that bickering between them doesn't really matter in the end, because when it counts, they protect each other. And if you pay attention, it's always been this way since season 1. Hoagie and Nigel are the 2 that visit her house the most, according to her dad. He feeds them cookies and kind of finds them funny. When they notice Abby hasn't been at the tree house, both of them went to go check on her personally in the infamous bra episode. And when they found out she was really sick, they took it upon themselves to guard her from any enemy attacks, even if they kind of failed at that, and even if they got kicked out for trying on Cree's bra. I do think that the thought at least was very sweet of them. Speaking of Cree, let's talk about her again for a moment. Now, we all know that number 2 has a huge crush on her older sister Cree. It's a kitty crush, and it's clear that he has no shot with her, nor should he, considering their age difference. But Hoagie is a bit of a lover boy, so that won't stop him from trying. He actually did go on one date with her when he was pretending to be a teenager named Hank. Obviously, she had no idea it was him, and when she did find out it was him, she was thoroughly grossed out. The fact that he had her swooning it still baffles me to this day. Even after that episode, he is very clearly still into her. No matter how many times she tries to murder him, he is very down bad for her. Number 5 is very aware of his infatuation with Cree, and it's clear that she finds it annoying, but in general she just ignores it, and sometimes she even teases them about it. It's kind of up to interpretation, but sometimes number 5's reactions to his crushes can be read as jealousy. With her sister, she kind of brushes it off because she knows he has no shot. However, with some of the other girls he's shown some type of interest in, she gets notably irritated with him. Abby was not a fan when Hoagie said number 10 was easy on the eyes. She was also kind of annoyed when she thought he was going Rambo to save a girl named number 78. Which is funny because she was even madder when she found out that the number 78 he was trying to save was a rare Yipper card, not a person. I think it speaks to number 5's character that even if she was annoyed that she thought he was rampaging for another girl, she still stood beside him and helped him. She didn't like it, but if he cares so much about a person, then she was going to help him no matter what, even if that person ended up being the Yipper card. And yeah, I do think that this whole time, number 2 was very unaware of her jealousy. He just saw as her being mad. He was just, every time she would hit him or get annoyed, he would be like, what? Like he was always so confused on why she was reacting in a slightly jealous manner. Like he was so smart yet so dumb at the same time. This slightly jealous attitude of number 5's might seem out of place, but it does make sense in the grand scheme of everything. Abby and Hoagie do spend a lot of time together. He visits her house, they have classes together. We've seen them multiple times eat lunch together by themselves without the rest of the team. Like in a Chocolate Bunny episode, he was dragging number 5 to the lunchroom so that they can hurry up and eat lunch. Also, Abby knows everything about number 2. She knows that he hates rhubarb. She knows he secretly goes to space to read Rainbow Monkey romance novels. Hoagie thought nobody knew his secret hiding place in space, but she did. And when it was time to pick a date for a dance multiple times, they picked each other without much thought. And when they got there, they both went straight to the snack table together, and honestly were very in sync for the most of the night. They both looked rather snazzy together, if I do say so myself. Like, look at them, they're so cute. Not to mention, they do make fun of people a lot together, and they bounce off each other's humor very well. Like, them constantly making fun of number 4 is hilarious. When you realize how close their bond actually was, her crush does make some sense. However, this is not a one-sided friendship though. Number 2 knows Abby very well too. He knows when to mess with Abby and when to back off and give her space. He also knows when to joke and when to help her out when she needs something, and when to take her feelings seriously. Also, even if Abby does not like his jokes, he makes it a goal of his to make her laugh specifically. He often directs his jokes in her direction, just praying that he get her to crack. We even see that in his dream scenario, in his perfect world, number 5 will see him as cool and love his jokes. So it's safe to say that he values number 5's opinion and wants her to think highly of him. It's also clear that Hoagie tends to like girls who are either out of his league or can beat him up, which is why he's attracted to Cree. He has no shot with Cree and is always getting knocked upside the head. And guess who also kind of fits this description of being both out of his league and can very much beat him up? Who's also super cool, yet someone he's also slightly afraid of? Yeah, Abby. It's clear that number 2 has a type. Like I said earlier, Cree and Abby are very alike, so it's not really far-fetched to think that if he liked Cree, then he would like number 5 as well, considering they are very alike as people. But don't get me wrong, I am not saying that he likes number 5 because she's just a smaller version of Cree. Number 5 is her own person. She may be very similar to Cree, but they are not the same. I'm saying that everything he could have possibly liked in Cree, Abby has as well. Plus, Abby has more. Number 5 is loyal. She has a big heart, she's smart, and more importantly, her and Hoagie have a friendship that can grow into something. Cree was like a pipe dream, but Abby is realistic. Abby was there through all their tough times at Sector V. She knows him like very few people do. When number 2 is being arrogant or full of himself, Abby will be quick to humble him. A quick smack of her hat and he straightens up. He still gets that spiciness that he seems to love, but to a more healthy degree instead of the toxic levels he gets with Cree. Abby truly cares for him, and I do think that he feels the same. So yeah, Hoagie may have liked Cree, but Abby is the one that's actually special. Once he grows up a bit and realizes how truly amazing Abigail is, Cree won't even be a factor in his mind. Abby and Hoagie has all the makings of being the perfect friends to lovers story. You may think this is all headcanon, I'm just making this up, and I'm just sprucing it up with pretty words, but listen. There is confirmation in the last episode of the series that Hoagie and Abby actually do get married in the future. A lot of people, including me, were shocked to find this out at first. However, once you watch the show with this fact in mind, it makes a whole lot of sense. This wasn't out of nowhere, and it's not because he's just substituting her for Cree. It is not because they were the only people on the team that were left to be thrown together. So no, this isn't really headcanon. This is more so me telling you guys how this could have led to them getting married. Abby and Hoagie were more subtle, but they were always endgame from the very start. They were friends who liked to get on each other's nerves. However, they liked each other for who they were. Yes, she may have found his jokes annoying, but she probably grew to love his dorkiness. And number 2 may not think she has a sense of humor, but he still finds it fun to annoy her either way. And when he finally wears her down and finally gets a laugh out of her, it'll probably be the best feeling in the world for him. Their chemistry on the show was so natural that you hardly ever notice it. It was just how they were. It's a classic class clown and the unoppressed girl trope that is both funny and adorable. Truth be told, I don't think that she really hates his humor as much as she pretends to. Hoagie's humor is very goofy, just like her dad's, so maybe she secretly finds his jokes comforting, but she won't say. It's obvious that she died before she tells number 2 that. If he heard that she may possibly like some of his jokes, he'd take it and run with it. Either way, I see them having a very successful and happy marriage. I imagine their household is very chill and full of pranks and puns. Obviously, Abby would keep a tight ship, but she will still be laid back enough for the house to be fun. They are both very kind and empathetic people, so I know they'll be good parents. The dorky dad and the cool mom combo is a top tier combination. As you can tell, I am a big fan of this ship, mostly because it's so cute. Also because number 5 and number 2 are both my favorite characters in the show, so knowing that they end up together is all I can ever want. I can't wait to talk about this again in the number 2 video. But yeah, their relationship is cute. I love it. It's iconic. And yeah, it didn't come out of nowhere. We may have thought that, but really it didn't come out of nowhere. And I really do think that this ship is just adorable. 1,000 out of 10, no no's. Now, I want to talk about one of the deepest relationships in the show. Number 5's friendship and history with number 1. Truthfully, after rewatching the show, I would classify them as best friends. And even though I am team Abby and Hoagie for life, I can absolutely see why there are people who would ship Abby with number 1 instead. I can't even argue with this ship either. So without further ado, let's talk about Abby's relationship with Nigel Uno, aka number 1, a relationship founded on mutual trust, respect, and faith. Most of Sector V go way back with each other in unexpected ways. Out of all the current members of Sector V, number 5 has known number 1 the longest out of her current team. Way back before Cree even left the team, number 5 found and recruited number 1 into the KND. What's interesting is, by the time he was trying to be a KND operative, number 1 was already bald, which number 5 was present for. So with all the information I have read and watched and tried to piece together, here's what I think happened. They alluded in the show that one of the past Sector V team's mission was to save some kidnapped kids from the delightful children from down the lane. The team at the time was number 5, Cree, and some 2 random twins. I didn't see Maurice there, so maybe he has already moved up in the KND ranks by this time. One of the kids they needed to save was Nigel Uno. They didn't say what happened exactly in the show, but while they did save his life, they were not able to save his hair. Nigel used to have cool brown hair, as he would put it. Somehow, some way, they were not able to stop the delightful children from down the lane from making him bald and taking his hair. Number 5 was crushed by this. To this day, she still blames herself for the incident. Number 5 not being able to save a kid was one of her worst fears coming true. After that unfortunate incident, she's made 2 promises to herself. She promised to 1, do her best to make it up to Nigel in any way she could, and 2, she promised to never leave a kid behind and save anyone that she can. She held these promises close to her heart and tried her best to see it through. That's why I think she's so insistent on saving that girl in the fountain episode, and why she was mad at number 4 for even suggesting to leave her behind. That's why she's not above helping the delightful children when they need help. She didn't like helping the delightful children, but she took an oath to help all kids, including the evil ones like the delightful children, or annoying kids like number 13. No matter who it is, number 5 will protect other kids. So in a way, that incident with number 1 did strengthen her convictions and made her a better agent. Number 1 knows that Abby feels guilty about what happened to him and his hair. However, he never once blames her for the incident. In fact, number 1 seems to feel bad that she still has a lot of guilt over it. No matter how many times he probably told her that it was okay, she still feels responsible. So instead of arguing with her, he just supports her in any way that he can. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself, so let's roll it back. After the delightful children did that to Nigel, number 5 has held a huge grudge against them. Her feud with them is more personal than most people's grudge with them. Well, besides number 1, obviously, I imagine his is the most personal grudge, but this video is not about him. Anyway, during that mission, number 5 must have seen how well he defended himself, because soon after this, she recruited him into the KND as a trainee. Abby was the main person who was vouching for him during this selection process, even when others were doubting him. After he graduated to being a full-on operative, he was assigned to Sector V, taking Maurice's place on the team. Not too long after that, Cree betrayed the KND and left. Once she did, number 5 was designated the leader of Sector V for a short time. During this time, number 1 trained under her as a subordinate. According to Nigel himself, Abby was a great leader. In fact, he believed that she was a better leader than he was. It's clear that during this time as her subordinate, he gained a lot of respect and admiration for number 5. One can even say that he very much looked up to her. However, Abby did not see herself as a good leader. She tended to be very hard on herself when she made mistakes, and that caused her a lot of anxiety. And even though number 1 thought she was an amazing and inspirational leader, Abby lacked confidence in her ability to lead. After a couple of unnamed incidences, number 5 just couldn't handle the pressures and expectations that comes with being a team leader anymore. She wanted to be in the KND but not as a leader. However, she was the only one on her team who was qualified to lead. She needed someone who was both qualified and trustworthy to take over the spot for her. Someone she can trust, but someone who also is fit to be a leader. Because not everyone can be a leader, as we saw with number 4. However, even if there was no one who was technically qualified, there was one person she did believe in, Nigel Uno. Nigel was fantastic as an agent. He was smart, he can fight, and he looks after others. He has the same values as number 5 and took an oath to protect kids. If anyone was leader material, it was him. However, number 1 didn't have the grades. His KND exams were average at best, so he couldn't be leader. So number 5 decided to break the rules. She hacked into the KND systems and changed number 1's grades from average to stellar, making him qualified enough to become leader. After this, number 5 stepped down and chose number 1 to replace her. Abby chose to play a more supportive role as second in command instead. So it was safe to say that without number 5, there would be no number 1 as we know it. She got him into the KND, she trained him in what it takes to be a leader, and she let him take over her position as leader. Knowing Nigel, he probably protested at first to this change, but eventually gave in and took over for her, giving us the number 1 we all know and love today. Eventually after this, they'll get new members of Sector V to join and become the team that we follow throughout the show. Everything I just explained happened before the series even took place. That's why I said these two have a lot of history together. They've been through a lot. I wanted to explain their history because it puts into context how they interact with each other throughout the show. It explains why number 1 treats Abby so differently than he does the rest of his team. After he became leader, he looked to number 5 as a fellow leader herself. Even though she's second in command, Abby still very much operates as co-leader. Number 1 has the last say as a leader, but it's very rare that he actually enforces his authority over number 5. It's clear throughout the series that he still very much looks up to her. Whenever he's panicking, he looks to number 5 on what to do. He often looks to number 5 for advice or follows her lead when she is suggesting a plan. Number 5 and number 1 operate as equals, especially later in the series. Number 1 tends to doubt himself a lot. Nigel works incredibly hard as leader and is a perfectionist. He's constantly trying to prove to himself that he's qualified to be in this position. After all, without number 5, he wouldn't be in this position at all, which can cause a fair amount of insecurity or self-doubt in anyone. He didn't naturally earn his spot as leader, so I think he works hard to earn his spot and prove to number 5 that she didn't make a mistake by taking a chance on him. Number 5 knows the pressures that come with being a team leader. However, she has all the faith in the world that number 1 can handle it. When number 1 is spiraling or overworking, number 5 is the one who takes care of him. She looks after him and keeps him from going off the deep end. Number 5 operates as a mentor / older sibling to everyone on the team, including number 1. Out of the entire team, she mothers him the most because he needs it the most. Number 1's work-life balance is awful and he tends to overwork and overexert himself a lot. And because number 5 put him in this role in the first place, she feels like it's her job to make sure that he doesn't die of exhaustion and take care of him. These two don't fight often, but when they do, it's usually because number 1 is refusing to take a break. When number 1 is being extra stubborn, number 5 is the person who has to set him straight. She is the only person on the team who will scold him for his behavior. Because they're seen as equals, she is not afraid to tell Nigel he's being ridiculous. Number 5 does not bite her tongue at all when it comes to number 1. Number 1 may be annoyed with Abby when she tells him off, but he does recognize that she is the voice of reason on the team. Like I said earlier, he said himself that she has way more common sense than he does. He may not always like what she says, but he knows that she's only looking after him. Number 5 is never malicious with her intentions, so it's easier to listen to her when she has an opinion on something, because you know she's not trying to hurt you. She's only looking after you. When it comes to working together, these two do it flawlessly. They often work in perfect sync and are true professionals, probably because they've been working together for so long. These two will get the job done and will strive to save as many kids as they possibly can. Number 1 is often stressed, trying to keep his team on task. However, with number 5, he never has to micromanage her. He always trusts her to get the mission done. You never really see him giving her orders twice. Whereas number 3, he has to tell like 5 different times. Or number 4, he has to force to do it. These two are the main ones who really take their mission seriously. When he's not there, he always leaves number 5 in charge. Abby can lead and motivate a team flawlessly, and she's the only one that he can truly count on to make sure his team is okay. When Nigel is feeling down on himself, Abby is usually the one to motivate him to keep going. She gives him the courage to trust himself and reassures him that he is a good leader, no matter what he may think. Number 1 takes care of his teammates and sees them as family in a way. He doesn't have siblings, so his team are like his siblings. So having a person like number 5 to be there to take care of him in the way that he takes care of everybody else is important for his mental health. These two have a lot in common. They both have insecurities around being leader. They both love all things KND. They both are well versed in KND lore and are true believers in kids' legends. Not to mention that when it comes to fighting styles, they both use ingenuity and coordination to win, rather than brute strength. And most importantly, they are both true friends who put others before themselves. The trust in their friendship is the purest in the show. Even in his nightmare scenario where he was president and most of his team have turned bad, number 5 was the only one who he can trust to lead him back to the right path. She was the only one who did not give in. When the Billy Mandy episode happened, she was the only one who did not give in. Number 5 is never the one to give up, and he finds that she's the only one that he can truly trust. When he became an adult, it was Abby's words that motivated him not to give up on his childhood. If there's anyone in this world who understands him, it's number 5. In the very end of the show, when Nigel had to leave Earth for the Galactic Kids Next Door, he was leaving for good and had the chance to say goodbye to his team. As he was saying goodbye to Abby, he thanked her for getting him to this point, and she told Nigel that she was very proud of him. In a very full circle moment, he gave Abby his glasses and chose her to lead the team again. Now, Abby was very hesitant and anxious about becoming leader. She did not want to do it. But he said that he was not giving her a choice this time. She was the only one he can imagine leaving his team to. He expressed that she was a better leader than he was. She led Sector V before, and now with him leaving, he needs her to lead again. There isn't much that would make me genuinely sad, but the ending of the Codename Kids Next Door is the most bittersweet of any cartoon I've seen. As he was saying goodbye to number 5, you could see how much respect there is between them. Abby gave him the strength to keep moving forward and not to quit, and he did the same to her. With Abby, he knew he was leaving his friends in capable hands, and Abby knew that Nigel was going to make a difference in the Galactic Kids Next Door. Goodbyes are hard. However, even if he's a million gajillion miles away, Nigel Uno will always be Abby's friend. Their friendship is truly one of my favorite things about this show. They are loyal to each other to the end and aspire each other to become the best they can. They both went on to bigger and better things, and it's thanks to each other that they were able to get there. They both inspire each other to push past fear and follow their dreams. They push each other to believe in themselves and take a chance. Nigel took a chance and was able to become a Galactic Kids Next Door. And Abby, well, she took the well-deserved spot as the leader of Sector V. Their friendship was important to both of them, and they provided each other with support and balance. And that type of friendship is rare and will last a lifetime. Now you may be wondering, where does she end up after this? What happened to the team? What happened to Abby? Well, Abby took over as leader of Sector V after Nigel's departure. And after that, things seemed to be looking up for her. With her newfound confidence, Abby successfully led her team, just like number 1 said she would. Sometime after that, number 362 retired. And as it turns out, number 362 gave her position as supreme leader to number 5, which means that number 5 became the supreme leader of the Kids Next Door. The fact that she went from being scared to lead a sector to being in charge of the entire Kids Next Door is amazing character growth. Nigel's words gave her the courage to overcome her anxiety around being a leader, and now she's thriving in the Kids Next Door as supreme leader. A funny little tidbit is that number 5 had to decommission number 363 because he kept freaking out when someone touched him and became a big liability on his team. I just wanted y'all to know that, just in case you hated that boy as much as I did. Once number 5 aged out of the Kids Next Door, she actually remained a KND operative. In fact, I think all of Sector V got to keep their memories. Also, it turns out that Abby was still secretly in contact with number 1 even after he left Earth. And in an interview special, she even got to welcome him back on the moon base when he came back to Earth years later as an adult. Abby is a true kid at heart, so it only makes sense that she remains involved with the KND well past her childhood. She's always been one of the most skilled and loyal operatives that the KND has ever had. Seeing her being so successful after the show concluded made me very happy. Not to mention she got married to number 2, and they seem very happy together. And in case you were wondering, her sister actually married Maurice, which never really made much sense to me, but whatever. Mazel tov, babe. Abby and Hoagie are canon, so I'm sticking to that happy little note. Abigail Lincoln is the spirit of Sector V. She is the true embodiment of what it means to be a Kids Next Door operative. Number 5 is both a good leader and good support, and will fit into whatever role she is given. Her team adores her and looks up to her for both guidance and comfort. She is a true friend who will have your back no matter if you're right or wrong. Abby will never give up on you, and she will be loyal to the end. She is intelligent, funny, and a well-adjusted girl who can handle most things that come her way. However, when she needs help, her friends are more than willing to defend her like she defends them. They stand up for Abby as much as she stands up for them. Abby has a big heart and is one of those friends that you make for life. Number 5 has brought so much to the show. She brought the crazy adventures. She brought the iconic sibling rivalry. She brought the hilarious one-liners. And most importantly, she brought the group together. You'd be crazy not to love her. So here's to the coolest candy hunter in the neighborhood. You'll always have a loyal friend in Miss Abigail Lincoln, aka number 5, the truest friend of the Kids Next Door. Thank you all so much for watching. This video was a lot of work, but it was so much fun. This series is a bit ambitious, so I'm excited to try it. And obviously, I love number 5, and I love the Codename Kids Next Door series. And hopefully anybody who loves this subject can also stick around and, I don't know, enjoy the ride. Anyway, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!